Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TexAgs Rewind presented by Specs. Pretty interesting show today. We had Olin Buchanan, as usual, in the Go Hour. We had Ray Mickens, former Texas A&M defensive back. He was fantastic. He talked about some of his time at A&M and what was maybe his best game for the Aggies. Then we had Tony Barnhart, legendary Tony Barnhart, in his 50th year covering college football. It was awesome to chat to him. And then Billy Liucci closed us out at the end of the show. So go check out the Rewind.
I'm looking at some of these lists. Okay, they have Florida as the number 5 offensive line in the country. A&M plays them by the way. Texas, the number 8 offensive line in the country, the number 3 running back room.
You're number 8
with a new offensive line.
With 4 new starters.
Yep.
Okay.
And then Notre Dame, the number 1 offensive line.
Number 1.
And the number 2 running back room in the country. So basically 2 of A&M's hardest road games not only will be potentially against top 5, top 10 teams, right? But also some of the strongest running back offensive line combos in the country, along with A&M's.
I knew Notre Dame's offensive line was considered really good. I didn't know they were considered number 1 in the nation.
Well, Athlon.
Yeah.
Again, people's opinions.
I write for them.
They got some good people there.
But I don't know who I would say is the number 1. Okay. I've been hearing Alabama's is supposed to be really, really good. But okay. Like you said, it's not supposed to be easy.
What it says about Notre Dame, they fell short of the national championship, but starters Anthony Knapp, Billy Schrauth, and Emil Wagner are all returning for the 2025 campaign. Additionally, players like Ashton Craig. This is actually from On3, taking it from the Athlon part of it, with several other backups last season stepping into significant roles.
A lot of guys who were starters last year, who would have been backups this year, transferred.
Yep.
I think 3 of them. So, but... yeah, okay. They've got a big-time O-line. What's A&M going to do about it?
Yep. Well, they had a big-time O-line last year when we underestimated. Notre Dame did.
We thought A&M was going to have a significant advantage at the line of scrimmage. And for about 3.5 quarters, it kind of looked that way.
What was your best game or your favorite game?
Man, if you got time, Michigan was it was one of my most memorable games. Now, I've had a lot of amazing games at Kyle Field. We played, obviously, and we played Texas down in Austin. We won both times down there. That was amazing as well. But that Michigan game, I don't know. I mean, going into that, they had 2 receivers that were NFL receivers. One of them was Amani Toomer. He was a 6'5" receiver, long first rounder. He was a first round draft pick. He was projected to go first round. And then they had a smaller, faster receiver called Mercury Hayes. And he was projected to go third round. And so I'm looking at their roster. I'm, trying to put myself in position to get drafted. So I want to shadow the best receiver they had, which was Amani Toomer. And, the game plan comes out. Coach Phil Bennett was our defensive coordinator at the time. Game plan comes out. Phil Bennett, we got a month of practice before the bowl game pretty much. So the game plan comes out. He says, Mickens, we're going to put you on Mercury Hayes, the smaller receiver. He's quicker. He's faster. And then we're going to put Typhel McMullen on Amani Toomer because Typhel McMullen, people don't know, but he was about a 6'2" corner, and he can run. He was fast. He was just young. And we're going to match you up with Amani Toomer, Typhel. I was so mad and livid. I was mad for a whole month because, I wanted to cover Amani Toomer. We get into that game, and I don't know if you remember the first half. The first half, I'm shadowing Mercury Hayes, Typhel's shadowing Amani Toomer, and Toomer has literally almost 100 yards by halftime.
Oh,
he has 100 yards by halftime. And I don't know if we were winning or it was a tie game, but it wasn't a good look going into halftime. And one thing that I've never done, and I've apologized to this day, is normally when you go into the locker room at halftime, the players go to their lockers and the coaches go and they meet for a minute to do some adjustment to their game plan. I busted into that coach's meeting room, and I told Coach Bennett, put me on Amani Toomer the second half. And I knew I was out of my I knew I was out of place by doing that. But he turned and he cussed me out and said, "Mother effer, you got him." And I left. I walked out of the coach's room. And that second half, if you saw the film, I was on him the whole second half. I think he finished with 115 yards after having 100 yards at halftime. And so after that game, we won the game. And I just went up to Coach Slocum. I went to Coach Bennett, and I told him I was sorry about the halftime thing. But we were all happy because we won. But I kind of never did that to a coach, and I felt very bad for a while after that.
Let's talk about this upcoming season and just get your thoughts on a couple teams. Our team, Texas A&M, a team that struggled mightily at the end of the season for multiple reasons, injuries to Le'Veon Moss and some defensive issues. Everybody I've brought on the show, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, has felt that Coach Elko is putting them in the right direction. I'm going to frame the question that way, and just what do you think?
Mike Elko is a really good football coach. Okay, some people when Texas A&M was struggling, it was like, oh, they must not be coached very. No. Mike Elko is a really good football coach. He's won every place he's ever been. It just, Texas A&M ran into a string of tough luck and tough injuries and all that, and I think they'll be fine. If Marcel Reed stays healthy and he does what we all think he can do, I think the Aggies will be fine. Now, having said all of that, there are a lot of really good teams in this conference. This year is going to be like last year. I thought last year there were a lot of really good teams in the SEC and no great teams. And I think that's probably the case again. But having said that, there are at least 3 and 4 teams who could win the national championship. So it's going to be a great year. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Who are your 3 or 4 teams that could win it? Georgia, Texas, who else? Alabama?
I think you got to go with Georgia, Texas, Alabama. Keep an eye on LSU. Brian Kelly. I talked to Brian Kelly, as we did a bunch of us who were there, and this could be the best roster that Brian Kelly has ever had. Matter of fact, I think it is. And he said he feels real good about where they are. Now, having said that, got to go to Clemson for the opener. Okay, got to go to Clemson for the opener. And Clemson probably has the best defensive line in all of college football, and they're going to be and a veteran quarterback in Kate Klubnik. So we'll see, but I think those teams could somebody else sneak in for the SEC and contend for the national championship? Yeah, always in this league, but from a sheer talent standpoint, I think it's those teams you just named plus LSU.
But you've also, and this is the unfortunate truth of all this, A&M have not been a top 20 program in the last 25 years. If you rated the 20 best in terms of success on the field, they would not be a top 20. I'm of the opinion that they should absolutely be living in that top 10. We have not yet seen it consistently. They haven't been a top 20 program. So when you're that, you're going to get upset sometimes because you don't have an overwhelming advantage on the field. And then winning games they're 1 for whatever at home against Alabama. Well, Alabama is typically a much better football team. I would contend that if you look at the number of upset wins A&M's had at home since joining the SEC, it's actually impressive considering how often they're either, they're not as good as the team they're playing. And that's not a flex at all. I wish it wasn't that way. It's just the truth. So they're 1 and whatever against Alabama. Well, every single Alabama team that's come in here has been noticeably better than A&M. But at season's end, just point blank, they were a better football team. But you look in the last, I don't know, big games at Kyle Field, Texas A&M tends to win. Where they screw up is these games. So they've beaten LSU 4 straight times at Kyle Field. 3 times LSU was in the top 10. Mm-hmm. 3 times they were in the top 10. They beat a number 3 Florida and Dan Mullen and Trask and Pitts. They beat famously number 1 Alabama. Was that a national champion, Alabama? No, because Bryce Young didn't win it. Yeah, it was just they came within a minute or so beating the number 2 Clemson that won the national title.
I think they've beaten. Well, they beat a number 11 Auburn team. I think they beat another highly ranked Auburn team, I believe. And then who are we leaving out?
Florida.
I said Florida.
Yeah.
So there's been some nice, in the last few years, some really nice home wins.
Okay, you're going to like, comment, subscribe, share, and comment who had the best little feet flutters in the rewind.